with a heavy heart, I start my recording in respect and offer my condolences to the family of Kobe Bryant, as well as the 8 other people that died on or in that helicopter crash this past Sunday. I am so hurt even for Kobe, and he also lost his life, but the life of his 13-year-old Gigi was also brought to an abrupt end. And I start to think, why is he such a hero? He dealt with his sexual indiscretions early on in his career, and he's or worked hard to become a better man for it. He had razor sharp focus. He did everything with excellence, and he knew his value was the best, being the best father and the best husband that he could be. He took that work ethic and his dedication and his loyalty just as serious on the court and off the court. And it just makes me sad that he did lose his life, because he started taking helicopter trips because he didn't want to be late for practice, but he also didn't want to miss another school play or one of his children's activities because he was caught in traffic. And I think that was excellent. He, and you don't actually have to be a basketball fan to recognize what he did for the game, what he did, and how he used his fame in a positive way, and how he stomped down his notoriety off the court with what he did and how he utilized all of the money and his fame to win an Oscar for a film short, started the Mamba League, encouraging young girls to become basketball players, and also encouraged his daughter Gigi because her whole goal in life was to become or be a part of the WNBA, and she would never see that. But what do we know? I wouldn't have, or no one would have expected anything less of this kid with the goofy smile and with the strong worth ethic. We all mourn the loss because he was taken too soon and too young. We can honor his legacy, all the good and the bad, by just trying to be excellent in place, being excellent where we are. No, we are not all going to be elite basketball players and uber rich, but we can strive to excel in our roles as parents, as sisters, as brothers, or just being great human beings. That's how we can honor his legacy, by being excellent in place. And oh yeah, Kobe reached and unified many, and it's affecting people deeply, even those that didn't follow his career, not exactly basketball fans, and not even a part of his immediate family. And for those of you that are just completely broken up and completely floored by his death, and you want to take the day off to take a bereavement day, I think I speak for every HR representative on the planet. You're not a part of his immediate family. Stop tripping. You will get fired if you try to take a bereavement day. As I said, you celebrate his legacy by being excellent. That means you got to go to work. Sorry. Period. Welcome to another episode of TNFro is Reading, and thank you for joining me for this episode. I am recording from my home, and this is a great day, and I'm having a great day. In this episode, I will be talking about not only the death of Kobe Bryant, but also why I'm still reading Ida, the sport among lions, how it has encouraged me to even research more of some of the historical figures revealed within those pages and looking up events that have also influenced her life because she was a contemporary of people like Ellen Jackson Clark. Also, even though I hated to admit or did not want to like this book, American Dirt by Janine Cummings, why I think it is going to be a blockbuster of a movie. Not a movie, but it's going to be a blockbuster of a book because of the hype is actually worth a read, and also to tune in to Oprah's book club because they're going to be taping on the border, as well as encouraging people to just be excellent right where they are. And as always, I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I have enjoyed creating it. Thank you for joining me. So before I get to the next part of the podcast, I have the pleasure of promoting items that I actually believe in. I belong or receive Writer's Digest in the mail, as well as I subscribe to their newsletter. And one of the things that I recently have purchased as an avid and coffee drinking consumer is whole coffee beans provided by Writer's Block Coffee. Writer's Block Coffee actually has a great consumer program, and they are offering 10% off their price of their whole beans, and I'm looking forward to my particular shipment in the coming days. So if you would like to also enjoy the medium roast, very aromatic coffee from Writer's Block Coffee, navigate to writersblockcoffee.com/TennesseeFro is reading and get your swag as well as your cup of Joe, and tell them that I sent you. Again, that's writersblockcoffee.com/TennesseeFro is reading. And that website will actually be available in the podcast notes for this episode. Now, when I saw this on this next book on CBS recently, it was American Dirt by Janine Cummings. It was a book that that's going to be a part of the Oprah Winfrey Book Club. They are planning on actually getting that book and taping down at the border. I was struck by multiple things. Number one, they were dragging Oprah for her withdrawal of support for the women that accused Russell Simmons of rape back in the day. They spent more time on that, so they couldn't really spend time on discussing this blockbuster, newly released book by this nouveau artist or writer. So I was trying my hardest not to like the book, but the more I've actually seen about it and the more I've read about it, especially in this past Sunday's New York Times book review, one of the things is this book I'm going to have to read for myself. I was afraid of supporting the purchase of a book by an author who it was just another white girl trying to culturally appropriate somebody else's culture and profiting from it. But it goes more than that. And I think the writer that reviewed this book, Lauren Groff, actually put it as best as I could ever have put this, or put this into words even better than I could actually put it. In a word, she best says that American Dirt contains few of the aspects that I have long believed are necessary for successful literary fiction. Yet, if we did have them, this novel wouldn't be nearly as propulsive as it is. The book's simple language immerses the reader immediately and breathlessly in the terror and difficulty of Lydia and Luca's flight. She basically says American Dirt seems deeply aware of the discrepancies in power between the desperate people it describes and both the writer who created it and the reader intended to receive it. The book offers itself as a testament to the fact that Cumming has worked to decrease this power differential. They call it polemic because that means it's basically calling out the shenanigans that are happening down at the border. And the major objection to cultural appropriation has always been about the abuse of power, inadequate research, half-hearted imagination, a lack of respect. The privileged assumption of the right to speak on behalf of people who are perfectly capable of speaking for themselves. But she also points out that other Latina authors are coming out and supporting how well this book is written, like Sandra Cisneros, Julia Alvarez, and Erica Sanchez. Its intended audience is clearly not the migrants described in it, who, having already lived this harrowing experience, would have no need to relive it in fiction. American Dirt is written for people like me. She was referring to herself, the reviewer, and also people like me. Those native to the United States who are worried about what is happening at our southern border, but have never felt the migrants' fear and desperation in their own bodies. This novel is aimed at people who have loved a child and who would fight with everything that they have to see that the child is allowed good fortune or good future. Cummings' stated intention is not to speak for the migrants, but to speak while standing next to them loudly enough to be heard by people who don't want to hear. American Dirt was written with good intentions, and like all deeply felt book, it calls its imagined ghosts into the people's real flesh. This is different than anything I've read, and it's definitely different than what essentially equated to blackface with Kim Kardashian, and that Sally Heifer that basically misappropriated and stole the do-rap or the head wrap that to be sold at $100 a pop to African American women. It's more than that. This book is well paced, and I could actually believe all of the hype, and it's well deserved. And this is one that I will give 3 cups of coffee because I honestly think it is a good read, and I've actually will be listening to it and referring to the sample if it's available in Kindle Unlimited. Uh, in Amazon. However, I'll also be looking for the presentation on Oprah's book club as it drops. I'm hopeful in the near future. I think what really tripped me out about that whole exchange with Oprah online is she couldn't really verbalize, and she was clearly affronted by the other references and alluding to why she pulled out from the documentary. Documentary, and I kind of get it because I think her time would have best been used to support this particular book, and again for just reasons. So either download it and listen to it on Audible or get the hard copy from Amazon, wherever books are sold. I think you'll actually be very glad that you did, and I am giving that the major thumbs up. Also, in addition to my writer's block affiliation, I've also joined the affiliation from probably one of the most hysterical websites online. For those of us that are tongue in cheek and want to get a unique gift for people with the same type of humor or lack of sense of humor or tasteful humor to be exact, navigate to shipabagadicks.com. Ship a Bag of Dicks is, again, for those people that want to give unique gifts and just for a few laughs. So, again, they actually have sale going on, some free shipping. And can you imagine the penis shaped gummy bears? I think I'm going to have to try those out myself. But if you just interested in looking around, navigate to shipabagadicks.com / TennesseeFro is reading. Um, and also consider entering that as an offer code uh, in order to get even further savings at that particular site. Shipabagadicks.com / TennesseeFro is reading, and let it again tell them or let them know that I sent you. Well, we are coming around the mountain, yes I am. I'll be coming around the mountain, yes I am. I'll be coming around the mountain, singing and shouting. I'll be coming around the mountain, yes I am. Well, I'm coming up on towards the end of the my podcast recording, and I wanted to talk a little bit more about Ida B. Wells and why I'm so fascinated by her. I actually I bought the book back in from Amazon back in October, and I didn't really start reading it in earnest until like December. I'm now 351 pages in, only about 40% into the book, and what I've noticed is it is encouraged me to do even more research. I have, you know what? That's what I was going to do, and I think I'll do this while I'm recording this segment. Ida B. Wells was no friend to the New York uh, Times in general, and in fact, they dragged her for most of her long career in anti-lynching movement. But let me see if the New York Times book review of Ida the Sword Among Lions. And they did do that. I think it is hysterical that even though Ida B. Wells was at many points had a very tense relationship with the New York Times, she perfecting techniques for identifying and isolating their various chemical components. Earlier that year, the Indiana State Board of Health had asked Wiley to examine the purity of commercially sold. She actually Wiley collected samples from is reviewed kind of sort of well, and I wish I actually had read this. Most of the jars labeled honey were just tinted corn syrup with a scrap of honeycomb thrown in. But it seems it ended pretty positively. It goes on to say and ends as Ida Wells Barnett was among the first to grasp that the battle against lynching was the moral cutting edge of African Americans' struggle for equality. In Fighting Words and Brave Personal Witness, she exposed lynching as a crime against the people. Sometimes they can kind of steer you wrong, but O Pioneer by Richard Lingaman, I think he actually still writes for the book review, says in his review of the book itself, if slavery is America's original sin, lynching is its capital crime. The historical memory dies hard. Only last year, 3 nooses were hung from a schoolyard tree contested by white and black students in General Louisiana. The wave of mob killings of blacks in the South by hanging, burning, shooting, torture started after the end of Reconstruction. These public murders were carried out with the real purpose of keeping blacks in their place, economically and socially. The practice was supported by leading citizens and became a popular public spectacle, a carnival of cruelty that drew excited crowds, kind of like the gladiators of ancient Roman Empire. According to Rope and Faggot, wow, the 1928 study by the NAACP General Secretary Walter Wright, between 1882 and 1927, there were 4,951 lynchings in the United States. About a third of them were aimed at whites, mainly in the West. 92 victims were women. Ida B. Wells Barnett was one of the first African Americans to raise an informed protest against this outrage. Paula Giddings' devoted and scrupulous biography is not the first study of this pioneering woman, but it is a comprehensive work that attempts to portray her as a part of the progressive movement that emerged among the black bourgeoisie in postbellum America. Wells Barnett dedicated her life to bringing lynchers to the attention of America and the world. Determined, outspoken, and fearless, an incendiary pamphleteer, she was politically astute, anticipating the tactics of the civil rights movement. Giddings, a professor of African American Studies at Smith College, and author of Where and When I Enter, a history of black women activists, brushes into the historical context of Wells Barnett's campaign ably, if in occasionally numbing detail, excavating scattered letters, fragmented diaries, and secondhand references to her writings for short-lived African American Weekly. Getting aimed, she writes, to uncover the achievements of a bold woman whose militancy and dominating style sometimes cost her allies in her own day and proper credit in the eyes of history. And even though he was kind of throwing her shade at that point about the numbing detail, this book itself is so much detail, and it can kind of get bogged down, but it is a historical biography. She lived in a day in which she met and worked with the likes of Frederick Douglass and Susan B. Anthony. She ticked off everyone from that bigoted newspaper editor of one of the Memphis dailies, as well as the head of the women's suffrage movement. She basically had to run from her hometown of Memphis, not to return for almost 3 decades because of a lynching that was reported at that time. And she was actually a newspaper woman. She owned a newspaper of her own in Memphis. And even though I live and love Memphis or Tennessee in general, I kind of always knew it was a little bit murdery, but I did not know how progressive it had become right around Reconstruction and how Jim Crow laws perverted everything. And also, she advocated for blacks arming themselves. She said the Winchester rifle should have a place of honor in every black person's home, since the government refused to protect us. She was militant before there was a Black Panther. She, her word and her weapon was her investigative journalism. She told her stories factually, but and she never uh, cut corners, and she didn't protect. She didn't cut her. She didn't, you know, she brokered no fools, and she never. She had a and to be truthful, and she could not tell a lie, and she told truth almost to a fault. She tells one story of laborer Sam Hose uh, in his brutal murder, and how parts of his body and even the tree that he was tied to and burned to was actually sold for souvenirs. Her stories are a precautionary tale because we got a crazy man in, well, not so crazy. I think we have a sociopath in the White House at this time that wants to win by any means necessary. He's used to and doesn't mind activating white supremacists and trolls from their mothers' basements. He doesn't realize that releasing the Kraken and getting him to do his dirty work is definitely going to backfire, because he's not going to be able to put a damper on that type of crazy. She lectured. She organized, even when she became Mrs. Barnett and had 4 children. She still basically hit that a straight lick with a crooked stick. She still made do. And although unsuccessfully, she actually ran unsuccessfully as a state senator in Chicago. She was a definite predecessor to our Chicago native, well, he was originally from Hawaii, Barack Obama. Elegant, fierce, and upstanding. That's why I'm still reading this book. Even though certain parts are a bit of a drag, the details and are marred by details. The details are what keep me coming back, because I keep going back and I'm finding more and more people to look up, and more intriguing in the interaction I have had with the Robbins House Society as I get more information on Miss Ellen Jackson Clark. I followed her trail from Concord all the way down south, which she taught at a freedman school, where she put to the test the new Civil Rights Act for when she and a colleague were actually kicked out of a segregated women's waiting room in the train station in D.C., how she fled the South to Kansas and taught the Exodusters and married her final husband, Harvey Clark, I think his name was, and then immigrated to LA, to Pasadena. She did die from tuberculosis, and the warm, dry weather was probably a godsend from Kansas. But she, her husband, and then her son were still pillars in a community of likewise racially harmonious individuals. It seems that John Brown's son, the raider of Harper's Ferries, some of his children actually immigrated and settled in the same community where she would actually call home. And that's why I think I actually am finding out so much more. I'm finding more people to actually research and finding out how amazing their lives was. The most complicated thing I had to do today was figure out how to light my fire or when to light my fire in my fireplace um, as the sun went down. Having to hand wash dishes because I have to replace my dishwasher. It just basically has gone kaput. And it's okay because I can actually afford to buy another dishwasher, even though I really don't want to, because this is a house that I'm probably going to sell. But again, middle class issues, as my cousin would say. I'm just having really a lot of fun, living my best life, and again, doing what I actually love to do. And before I get to my final conclusion, I will be in Gainesville, Florida, speaking about why write a book and how and why I wrote my book, Not My Family, as part of a speaking series at the medical school. I will be there February 3rd and coming back to Chattanooga on the 4th. That to me is such an honor because I started writing long before I actually got to the University of Florida. And in the almost 30 years since I've left medical school, primarily my writing has been of a technical and medical necessity, but I'm finding that writing and the whole blog posts and tweets all have their purpose in my life, and I'm going to be able to share that with the students at University of Florida. The actual talk is only about an hour, and it's on the 3rd at 12 o'clock in the new Herald building, and I'm pretty excited about that. And I'll be able to not only tell them about my process of writing and self-publishing a book, but also why and how I support this podcast and do what I do, because my podcast, like my writing, is not only a path of entertainment, but it's a form of therapy for me. It's my outlet, creativity, and my outlet of creativity. However, if you are also still struggling with depression, anxiety, or addiction, there is a 1-800-273-8255 number that 24 hours a day that will allow you to unpack some of these issues, as well as TalkSpace and Doctor on Demand. You can actually get the help that you need in the privacy of your car, and basically it is on demand at a fraction of the cost of conventional therapy. This journey of life is so hard, and it's okay to ask for help. Don't forget to navigate to www.DalesAngels Inc. for all the special offers and updates on nerd news. Drop me a line at TennesseeFro@gmail.com or even leave a 2-minute voicemail at 423-463-0658. No trolling messages, please. And if the messages are not trolly, I may actually read or play them during my podcast. If you like what you're hearing and you're sick of freeloading, become a patron on Podbean at patron.podbean.com/talkingfro. Or you can send me a tip at paypal.me/FeliciaDai. And again, check out and click on many times Writer's Block Coffee or my shipabagadicts.com and enter in my promo code TNFro is reading to get cost off of shipping as well as overall percentage off of your total order. And again, it has been a joy basically recording reading what I like and recording for it to be shared with the general public. And I hope you will join me next time. In TNFro is reading. I plan on doing a very short post in preparation, or you can also talk in anticipation of the next episode of Picard that drops on Thursday. And again, happy reading, and thank you for joining me. Y'all have a great day.